Greater Bowie Chamber of Commerce presents the Bowie Business Journal, a program designed to keep our community informed about important business and economic issues.
Hello, I'm Pauline Markward, your host for the Bowie Business Journal, where you can meet your local business owners. I'd like to introduce my first guest, Brian Berman of Berman Enterprises. Welcome, Brian.
Pauline, it's great to be here.
Wonderful. So I understand that you have a family business, the Berman Enterprises, and it goes back many generations. And
Sure does. It sure does. Company was started over 60 years ago by my grandfather, Melvin J. Berman, may he rest in peace, and by his brother Isidore Wolford Berman, may he rest in peace. It's a pretty amazing story, actually. My grandfather's parents moved to the panhandle of Florida, near the Pensacola area, a place called the Funiac Springs. Mm-hmm. And my great-grandfather built up the only general store in the community, and was just a loved man. The community loved him, and when the Great Depression hit, he had such a tough time seeing what people were going through, and being the general store owner, he decided that he was going to provide people what they needed on credit, even when they couldn't afford it. And of course, over time, because the Great Depression took quite a while, it bankrupted him, unfortunately, and he was unable to really even feed my grandfather anymore. And my grandfather was about 17 years old at the time, and hitchhiked all the way from the Panhandle to an uncle that had a dairy store, an aunt and uncle that had a dairy store in Baltimore. And he, from what I understand, jumped trains and hitchhiked, didn't have 2 cents to rub together, but was a natural go-getter, a natural businessman. Joined his uncle at the dairy store and did really well. And the story goes that in those times, the best cheesecakes in the country were being sold out of New York City. And so he would travel up to New York and somehow got a hold of a refrigerated truck and came back down and started selling cheesecakes. And became successful in his own right, and developed, brought his brother up from the Panhandle, sent for his younger brother, Wolford, and they built a wonderful dairy business. They were located in Skaggsville, Maryland, and eventually had plants in multiple states. And then when World War II, when the country was actually attacked at Pearl Harbor, they dropped everything, both of them, to join the service. They felt such an incredible love of country, and went to serve in the armed services. And when they came back, of course, after having left for years, the business was in shambles, and they had to rebuild the entire business from ground up again, and they did. And they loved it. I mean, I remember visiting my grandfather in California, where they moved to retire, and you'd hear something at 4 o'clock in the morning. What's going on here? You know, retirement community, right. What's happening? You know, was there a break-in? And it's my grandfather. Every day, get up at 3:30, because that's his whole life. He was a dairyman, you know, so and he loved it. And then one year, something unusual happened. They owned a piece of property that had some road frontage, and they started getting contacted by developers. That was the first shopping centers in the country were starting to go up. And he kind of was curious as to why these developers were calling, and started learning. They want to build a shopping center here. And he said, you know, why don't we do that? And so he and his brother developed the first shopping center in the company, Ingleside Shopping Center. And they loved the business. They loved the dealing with the people, right. And they loved renting space and the different unusual types of businesses that they leased to. And they decided to divest everything that they had in the dairy business, which at the time they had multiple plants in multiple states. And they said, this is the business we love. This is what we want to do.
Wow, it's quite a change.
Yeah, it was a huge, huge change. And that's how they got started. Very hands-on, very focused on customer service, honesty, integrity, hard work, and stick-to-itiveness. And they were the developers of the Laurel Shopping Center and the Laurel Mall. Those were sort of their pride and joy, and had incredible, deep personal relationships with each of their tenants, to the point where when, just jumping forward, far into the story, when I did my first project, we still had tenants from those early days, and we called him the general, would come out and say, "Now you boys are going to be just like your grandfathers, right?" "Yes, sir, absolutely, sir." So it's inspirational. His story is one of just incredible inspiration for us, and it's a guiding force behind everything we do. In fact, I have a portrait of him that my grandmother painted that's behind my seat where I sit in my office every day, and I look upon it, and I'm sad that he's not alive to see what we've done with the company. But this is home. This is where he started everything, and it's great for the family business to be operating here and for so long, and to have such good relationships with so many different communities.
Yeah, it's a wonderful family story.
Yeah, that's great.
So what other projects do you have on the horizon?
Oh, we have so many things going on. Just to take a step for a second, I'll tell you that whereas retail was sort of the love of my grandfather and my great uncle, when my father and Gary joined, one son from each of their families, they got into construction. They got into office buildings, and one thing happened after another. I think my grandfather wanted an office building to be built in Laurel, right next to the shopping center. They thought it would be really good for the lunch crowd, and they couldn't find anyone to build the building, or even to take the land for free to build a building on. So my dad and Gary said, "Well, we'll do it." And they tried their hand at construction, and they were exceptional at it. And so the business changed from just retail to now construction and to office development. And a lot of what we're doing now is we've expanded now to the point where we have projects that are multifamily, we have projects that are office, and we have projects that are retail, and I'll get into some of the details later. But it really stems from the fact that they looked at their core competency as being entrepreneurship. What's available, what's out there that we can do, where we can make a positive impact on the community, and we can also do something interesting. I like to say that our dads never did the same thing twice. Like, they just love to do lots of different things. So they built warehouses in Columbia. They converted the O'Fair Elementary School in Laurel into a thriving office park, which we still own today. And the city of Laurel actually owns a piece of it that we built back then. And then one of their big projects was the land in New Carrollton, which we're currently working on. If you're familiar with the New Carrollton Metro Station, so we developed the land on the west side of the tracks there. Yeah,
exciting.
And so they built the company on the same principles that my grandfather and great uncle had infused this sort of genesis with, and expanded greatly. In the early 90s, there was a downturn in the office market, and our family was one of the very few, very, very conservative real estate developers at the time, and so they had assets to deploy, and there were lots of things on the market for pennies on the dollar, and so they expanded by buying a large portfolio of office. But because the Bermans operated with such a small core group, they decided that the right vehicle for that would be to expand a business. They invested in Beco Management, which now has many millions of square feet under management, with a dear friend of ours and my uncle. And so we're kind of like sister companies. So Beco manages the larger office portfolio, and Berman does a lot of the ground-up development and a lot of the value add, taking things that other folks don't want or can't see what's going to happen with this and what could be brought good of it. And that's like our value add is the focus. Value add is the focus of Berman Enterprises. So today, there are 6 members of the Berman family, 3 from each, Gary and his first cousin, Gary and my dad, who are first cousins. And we have properties primarily in Maryland and Virginia. We had properties in Florida, which we recently sold. I have a brother who lives in Florida. And we have properties in North Carolina and Illinois. And the project I'm most excited about, of course, is Bowie Marketplace. It's my baby, and I love it. But we also have an exciting project in New Carrollton called New Carrollton Station. We recently built an office building for the state of Maryland, and now we're developing 550 Class A apartments and retail on the first floor, sort of a mixed-use development there. And we acquired the PNC Bank building in the city of Baltimore, the old Mercantile building. It's really, really cool building. It's a 22-story office tower. Really, really exciting. And we're converting that to be mixed-use office and Class A apartments. So we're doing quite a bit, and we have all sorts of other different things going on as well. And of course, our properties that we own in Laurel, et cetera. But of course, like I said, Bowie is my baby, and I love it, and I work on it day to day, so it's really exciting.
Well, tell me the importance of mixed use, because we hear that term so often now, and I don't know if everybody understands what exactly mixed use is.
Mixed use technically means that on any particular development, there's more than one type of use. So office is a type of use, industrial is a type of use, warehouse is a type of use, retail is a type of use, and of course residential is a type of use. And then within each of those, there's subsections. You know, there's residential condos, there's apartments, there's single-family homes, there's townhouses. In terms of retail, there's single-story retail, there's enclosed malls, there's suburban shopping centers. Each of those has each different machination. But mixed use typically means when there's at least two different types of uses. And why it's so exciting is that mixed use allows you to create an engine that supports the project. So whereas if you just build a retail shopping center, you're dependent entirely upon, you know, outside folks coming in and shopping, which is largely what you're dependent upon even if you do mixed use. When you do mixed use, you add to the shopping center other uses that are complementary. So when I mentioned how my grandfather had developed a Laurel shopping center, the idea of building an office building next to it, which actually we still own that office building, and it houses the Baltimore-Washington Chamber of Commerce. And we're dear friends with all those folks and had them as our tenant for decades and decades. But that idea of putting an office building adjacent to a retail shopping center is mixed use. The idea that the office users will hopefully come down and patronize the restaurants and establishments during lunch to create a synergy so that the retail benefits from the office being there and the office benefits from the amenity of the retail being there.
Wonderful.
That's what mixed use is, yeah.
And so out of all the different combinations you can use, what's your favorite combination?
Well, a lot of it depends upon the market and the zoning. I really love all different types of real estate. My personal love is retail. I love retail, and I love having residential nearby, because retail and residential is just an amazing, amazing dynamic duo where, I mean, residents need to go to grocery stores. They need to have, you know, they need to go to different establishments to have services and products provided to them. And to have it adjacent makes the residential more valuable because it's nearby, and it's really, really a benefit to those that live there in terms of even things which would typically be a destination now become something that's just so easy to use. And then for the retail, it benefits in by putting the customer base close by. And so you have a built-in base of customers that's right there, right on the site, and it's just, it works really well together. That's why I love it so much.
Okay, wonderful. Well, let's get into Marketplace a little bit.
Yeah.
So I've driven by. It looks like it's just about complete as far as the stores go.
Yeah, Marketplace is, we have a grand opening, which will be end of September, very early October, depending upon when we can complete the construction. It's extremely exciting how far along it's come. I'm very proud of what it looks like and how it's turned out, and honestly also the tenant mix. Marketplace is an amazing story to me because our family has entered into public-private partnerships and worked with municipalities many times over the course of the history of our company. But this has been a sterling example of public-private partnership. It has been, in my opinion, the best example of what working together with a municipality can be, and to benefit the community and to benefit the developer and to make it something that's really everyone's proud of. I mean, it's pretty interesting, but when we first bought Marketplace, of course, it was an old, dilapidated mall with vagrancy and crime and all sorts of other things. And but it did have a handful of tenants that were there, and the mall was by and large closed down. And what was interesting is that because our family business is so close knit, and we're a small shop. We do lots of things, but because we're a small shop, we have lots of Bermans. We're very, very hands-on. We can only do a certain number of projects at a time. Our motto is to do projects really, really well, to focus in on them, rather than to do a ton of projects sort of mediocre. And so when we bought Marketplace, we felt, wow, this is an amazing location, great community, but it's not ready for development yet because we simply don't have the time. We have so many other things that are priority right now, and there's no retail anchor. But right after we bought it, the city called us in and said, we want you to make this a priority. We want you to put this, we want you to put this up in your prioritization and make this happen now, sooner than later. And we sat down with them to talk about what would be necessary to happen, and we entered into an agreement with the city of what we would need to do. And from there, I embarked on the mission of finding a major retail anchor that would be of high quality and really bring the panache that we were looking for, that this deserved. And 2 years later, I was finally able to succeed in securing Harris Teeter as the grocery anchor, which of course is just so very exciting. And now we're a stone's throw from the grand opening, and if you look at the tenant mix, it's a great mix of national tenants and some locals that are returning, and it's just very exciting for us to see it be so close to grand opening.
Okay, so I understand in the new Marketplace there's going to be some residential housing. Well, why don't you tell me about that?
Sure. So the plan for Marketplace all along has been to be a vibrant mixed-use development. And it's the part that I'm so excited about, because I really, like I said before, that the symbiosis of mixed uses, we've just seen it work over and over again. And we actually own a beautiful apartment complex in Bowie. Used to be called Harmony Place, now known as the Bowen, Class A, with beautiful apartments with granite and super highly amenitized pool and meeting areas, and et cetera, et cetera. And so in the rear section of the Marketplace, there's about 5 to 6 acres that are dedicated towards the residential development. And it's something that we talked about a lot with the city when we were devising sort of this plan to jumpstart the development. And now, of course, we've had time to develop the concept into approximately 285 apartment units. It actually started out as 350. That was our original concept. And we committed, as a part of the apartments, besides the fact that it would be very Class A and very high-end, just as the Marketplace is in the retail world, we committed to working with the community. Again, we know we can always please everybody, but because it's in our family ethos and our priorities are our name and the principles that we live by, one of those major principles is that we want to better the communities that we're in. And so we committed to working with the community regarding what this development would look like, of course, within the parameters of what we originally expected to be able to develop. And that process is now sort of in the middle of its development. We went through several stakeholders meetings, and in the first stakeholders meetings there were major concerns brought to our attention regarding density, regarding height, regarding parking, regarding traffic. And these are all good questions. You know, I'm a developer. I deal with this all the time. This is my life. I love Bowie Marketplace. You know, I can in my mind deal with all of the issues because it's my life. But for folks that are, you know, watching on the sidelines and are their community members and they're impacted stakeholders, they have a right and they should speak out as to what their concerns are. And so we listened at the stakeholders meeting, and then we came back for a second stakeholders meeting, and we addressed one by one each of those concerns. And I would say the biggest change by far is the height change in the rear from 5 stories with a pitched roof to 4 stories with a flat roof, and a massive reduction in density to from 350 units to what is basically the absolute minimum that works economically, 285 units, in order to accommodate the community's concerns. And So our next stage is that we are preparing all of the plans necessary to do a formal submittal to the city of Bowie. And then I guess there'll be several hearings where we will, after those are reviewed, where we will go before the council for a vote. And then once that's done, we take that and then go to Prince George's County, kind of along the same process. A detailed site plan requires us to put a lot of detail into the site plan regarding all the infrastructure, the buildings themselves, architecture, and then once that hurdle is passed, then you can go ahead and actually have architects and engineers design what's called the construction drawings to get an actual building permit and move dirt. So it'll take some time, but we're in the process. We're excited to be working with the community and hope that folks realize that even though not everybody can be pleased all the time, that this was baked into the development and it's going to be wonderful, it's going to be marvelous, it's going to be very positively impactful, and we're excited for it.
Good. Let me ask you about parking in the garage.
Sure.
I know you haven't designed the buildings completely, but would the parking be underneath?
The parking, well, there's three areas really of parking. The residential building will have a dedicated garage that will not be underneath the residential building, but will be within the footprint of the building. So the apartments will wrap it. And the reason that has worked so well, it's sometimes known as the Texas donut. I guess that's because in Texas, maybe that's where it was first developed, where many apartments can access the garage directly and other ones go through the corridor. And then there also will be surface parking areas, small surface parking areas, visiting lots, et cetera, surrounding the residential. And then, of course, the retail has its own surface parking lot. So that's parking will be addressed. It will be ample parking in the development.
Yeah. Good, good. How exciting.
It is really exciting.
And what is the time frame again for breaking ground on that?
So that all depends on the approval process. My hope is that we can break ground sometime in 2017.
Okay, well, that's soon.
It is soon. Yeah, it is soon, and it's important to us to obviously we want to get going as quickly as possible, but it's also very important for us that we make sure that we have addressed the community concerns that we've submitted to the city in the way that we've promised we were going to submit, and that we also produce a product that everyone can be proud of.
Okay, wonderful. I know we were talking about it earlier, but as a kid, I grew up here. I'm an S-section kid, and I got to see it go through all of its phases. Right. I remember when it was an open-air market. I guess that's what you call it, when the buildings are around the outside. I'm from the Somerset section, so I walk down and past the marketplace frequently, and when it was more of an open-air market, there was a turtle, and I am one of those kids that was very disappointed when the turtle went away and they closed it in, because that was the fashion. Everybody wanted a closed mall. And tell me about the turtle and what you know about the turtle. It's
so funny. So two things happened after we bought the asset. The first was the city being adamant that they wanted to see something happen now, that this was an eyesore, it was a blight. Very proud community. It's really wonderful to see. And the second thing that we kept hearing over and over and over was Tommy the turtle. And all of us in our company were like, come again? A concrete turtle on a concrete sidewalk that kids were allowed to play on? Okay, and we started seeing people had pictures of this and incredible memories. And, one of the things that's very important to us is, we want people to be proud and excited about what we do. We're a member of the community, and hearing the nostalgia surrounding this turtle, we went on a mission to find Tommy the turtle. There was a rumor that maybe he had been stolen, because what I had understood was he was there when it was an open air mall, but then he was moved. He wasn't removed completely, but he was moved when it was an enclosed mall, and he was kind of out like in the parking lot area. Does that ring a bell at all, or no?
I was a little young.
You were young. Okay, well, from what I even saw pictures. The mayor showed me pictures like playing as a kid on this turtle out in the. I'm like, okay, so it's a concrete turtle on a concrete pad in the parking lot. All right, and we went on the search to look for this turtle, and everything that we could determine was that when the mall was shuttered ages ago, the turtle was destroyed and removed. Although there were some twin turtles There's one in a park nearby that we strongly considered stealing and bringing to the marketplace, considering how much people love this turtle. But we were able to track down the original manufacturer of the turtle.
Oh, that's amazing.
To get the specs on this turtle. And it is incredibly heavy and unbelievably expensive. And we talked about it as a family. And we said, you know, how amazing would it be to surprise the community? Not just this great shopping center that's so beautiful and turning around this blight, but to bring Tommy the turtle back. And so I guess this is the surprise announcement for those who are watching, that we have created Tommy. Tommy has been reincarnated.
Oh, that's so exciting.
He's back. And if you look closely, there's a beautiful patio area that's in front of all the buildings for outdoor seating, and just to give a feel to the center. There's a section near Petco that is not complete yet, because that is the pad where we are going to locate Tommy and bring back to life all those fond memories and give a place for those young kids to play again. And we figured it was very apropos to be near Petco.
Absolutely.
You know? So it's just really exciting how many times we heard people light up about Tommy the turtle and being able to bring him back. So yeah, so that's happening right around the grand opening.
Oh, I couldn't be more excited for you and for Bowie.
We're just so proud to be working in the state of Maryland and in the city of Bowie in particular.
Okay, well, I'm proud to have you as a chamber member. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much.
I'll definitely see you around Bowie.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Bowie Business Journal, and we'll see you next month.